Okay, we're live. Welcome back to another episode of Invest Interest, if you want to call it an episode.
More of
Podcast
a
number 8.
cheeky little podcast that's getting thrown around every now and then, usually on a Monday evening between 7 o'clock to around 8. Sometimes we dribble it in just a little bit later like we have done tonight, but we had a few issues that we needed to resolve before we came online.
Yep, let's call them a technical issue.
Let's go on a technical issue, even though, yeah. So I'm Dion, and this is Lewis.
Yep.
We've been investing now, maybe, since 2016? Around that sort of lines. I think we got in, didn't we, just after the Brexit vote, and all the stocks and shares pretty much tanked, and we decided to throw a little bit of cash in and thinking that it'd bounce back, which it has done to some degree.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 2015, 2016, we saw an opportunity. We've made some profits, and, well, it looks like we're making a loss on paper, but...
Yeah, for a few stocks at the moment, yeah, but sure. Various reasons for that, but that's a story for another day. So what we do here is we will usually, review the news of the week. If there's anything in particular that we thought caught our eye that could be related to opportunities going forward, then we'll typically have a main topic we'll talk about, which could be anything from mortgage rates or passive income and betting techniques.
Basically,
just anything really that.
Sorry, basically anything that you can invest in or perhaps see an income from, passive or active, it doesn't really matter. We're looking to just kind of get a broader scope of what's available out in the market and provide a little bit of information on that topic.
Yeah, it's as well as providing the information for you guys watching or you girls watching, we're also looking to educate ourselves on topics. So obviously we can take that experience further and develop our portfolios and sources of income that we're looking at.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so we normally kick it off with the latest news. We've had a pretty quiet week.
Yeah, that or we've just missed most of the stories and we've not put a record down in our little journal that we have online.
Yeah.
So the only thing that we've got this week is the Iran crisis, which has been ongoing now for a fair few weeks that we've been. So the latest in this game of brinkmanship, I guess, is I mentioned last week that Iran were threatening to try and they should retaliate. Was seized by the UK, and then this week we had a scenario almost where there was a few Iranian vessels that looked like they was trying to stop BP supertanker. But apparently, after the Royal Navy, that was warship that was essentially trailing this BP, guarding it or protecting it or just patrolling, whatever you want to call it, sent out a couple of warnings, and then the Iranian ship scarpered. And obviously, the Iran government have said, no, we won't do anything. But America and the UK have said, oh, it looks like they was trying to do this. So tensions are still quite high. Naturally, that's going to keep oil around in this pretty tight range that we've had now for the last couple of weeks, where it's bouncing between, I'd probably say, $64 to around $67. It's been quite tight in that range. So that's probably going to stay there for a while maybe till the end of driving season over in America, because that usually fluctuates, does the price, depending on the oil reserves that they have. Not oil reserves, but their oil stores over in America.
Right.
So going back to the Iran crisis before we get diverted and start talking about something else, the latest is, I think, our Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, wants to sort of negotiate some sort of deal with Iran in order to release their supertanker. So I think that'll involve a couple of things. Obviously, UK woman that's currently in prison over there for teaching journalism. So I think he'll try and negotiate her freedom with regards to any sort of deal. And then there is, of course, the whole European nuclear deal that Iran have made. And that's quickly falling apart. As last week we mentioned that Iran have breached their uranium enrichment and their stockpiles. So if the UK can try and negotiate something to release that tanker to then allow them to drop their levels back down to their original pre-agreement levels, then that would be a win-win, I guess, for the trade-off.
So, sorry, I must have missed something there. So, whose tanker is it?
So initially, I mentioned last week that an Iranian supertanker carrying
Yep.
oil, it was heading to Syria.
Yep.
It was not caught, but was
Escorted.
not even escorted. It was essentially taken. Well, it's not taken hostage. Is it? What's the word I'm looking for? It was occupied by the Gibraltar Authority because they suspected it was someone was because there's a ban currently on all Iranian crude by America.
Okay.
In order to hit their economy to make them, I don't know, whatever America's beef were originally to drop their, because they said the nuclear deal were bad. But anyway, Trump wants to hurt their economy, so they put an export ban on all their crude oil. So this tanker was carrying Iranian oil to Syria to support the Assad regime. So the Gibraltar authorities sent the Royal Navy over there, and they occupied it, and they basically seized it. And then Iran said that they wanted to retaliate by saying they should they should occupy or seize a UK supertanker going through the Straits of Hormuz.
Right. Now I'm following.
So that's why we've had this sort of
Standoff.
game of
Yeah.
cat and mouse, like almost a standoff this last week, where the ships have sort of got in the way, and then the UK ships thought, oh yeah, they're trying to stop us, and blah blah blah, and then the warship's been like, can you please disperse so we can carry on sending this crude? And then naturally the war of words heats up a little bit, but since then it's cooled off, and now, as I've just mentioned, they're trying to negotiate the deal in the terms of releasing that supertanker.
Right. That makes much more sense. Sorry.
Yeah. Obviously, I just explained it in a bit of a fragmented.
I was getting mixed up between
story.
which tanker was which, and I didn't realize there was two at first. So, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So there's the one that the Gibraltar and the UK authorities currently have seized, and then there was the one last week, I guess, in the standoff, but didn't actually get seized.
Fair enough. That's pretty much it for our news. Did you see the new? There's a new £50 note coming out.
Oh yeah, they're sticking Alan Turing on it, the guy who cracked the German code.
Yeah.
Super.
But it was interesting because we had a chat, I think last week or the week before, about going cashless.
Oh yeah.
Like a cashless society. But there's been kind of a debate apparently prior to this issue that whether there's a need for a £50 note, because most shops in the UK don't accept them.
It's not that they don't accept them. I think they just politely say, we don't have enough change to be able to provide you with that.
No, they have strict signs saying we do not accept £50 notes.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But basically, it's because they see the £50 note as something that's kind of, well, probably the one that people are going to invest most time in if they want to forge one. So it's difficult to tell whether they're real or fake.
But why would they do that if no one accepts them? I don't understand that concept. Sure, you do a 20.
But it's more value, isn't it? So your time versus your print versus the special ink and stuff. They probably want to maximize it.
I understand that concept, but if you
You
can't
use it in the UK, you can still use
really
them worldwide and banking systems and stuff like
yeah,
that.
maybe.
But yeah, the other thing was as well, it's not every store in the UK that doesn't accept them. It's just
a few, isn't it?
But yeah, the other thing is that it's got a nickname. I can't remember the exact nickname, but essentially it's used by the criminal or the corrupt elite.
That's the one, yeah, the corrupt elite swipe pad or something like that. Yeah, I saw that little earlier on.
That was quite interesting. So yeah.
I mean, the only thing I can really remember the 50 notes for is when you used to watch Dragon's Den. And they used to have them big fat wads of 50s.
I wonder if they've changed to 20s.
Yeah. Probably not even changed to that. They've probably just got one Bitcoin on the table.
So, yeah, well, that's it really in the kind of finance world.
Yeah, I mean, there's still stuff ongoing that we've mentioned before, but there's nothing really new that's progressed. There's still protests and uproar in Hong Kong that's going on, but it's kind of just a long, drawn-out process now, I guess that is, and I don't really they've had the major protests for the issues that we've raised before, but now it's just sort of prolonging that
Right.
conflict. Not conflict, but that prolonging that standoff. Compromise or any ground has been gained. It's just a standoff, really. So there's nothing really new that you can add to the concoction of stuff that's going on over
Fair
there.
enough.
Yeah.
Right. I guess we still don't know about
Topic
our
of
Prime Minister
the
either, or a new election.
yeah, the Prime Minister's still the race for the number 10 is still ongoing. That's due to the final date you can vote if you are a Conservative Party member. I do believe is this Sunday coming up, Sunday the 21st. And then the new Prime Minister will be announced on the 23rd of July, so that'll be a week on Wednesday. Now, that's important because obviously the two candidates we have running at the moment have, I wouldn't say they have massively different views on how they're going to take Brexit forward. It's just, I think, moment on how Parliament and the opposition choose to assess who gets in and whether or not they want to put a motion of no confidence in straight away and then try and force a general election, which will then kick the can further down the road with regards to whether or not we're going to leave on the 31st of October,
Yeah.
or whether we're going to leave it all and going to have a second vote. So I think everyone's just waiting until whoever gets in and then the first sort of couple of weeks, and then I reckon tactics will come into play from, like I say, the opposition or the cabinet with regards to what they're going to be doing for Brexit. So at the moment, everything's still uncertain. Nothing new there. It's been the same for the last 3 years. No one knows what's going on. Everyone's predicting this. People are throwing statements around, but nothing's getting done.
Yeah. Nothing finalized. Still stuck in limbo. So,
yeah.
which is obviously
I just
causing
kind of look at it
havoc.
like a car just doing donuts in a car park. Like I'm not actually trying to go anywhere. I'm just really appreciating this circle that I'm just burning my tread on.
Like, yeah, because they're also getting paid. They're not really achieving anything.
Well, they're getting paid, and it's even funnier than MEPs that are representing them in the EU getting paid as well, and half of them don't even want to be
Yeah,
there. So, fair enough.
I
Crazy
know.
world there. Right. Shall we crack on to a topic of the week?
Sure. Probably the
What do you
one that would be easiest to
come?
talk about would be saving and budgeting.
Saving budgeting. You see, I'd started to
Uh,
do some
Okay.
graphs and some some more analytic reviews of my budgeting and spending. So it would have been good if I'd have had a couple more months of data so I could have actually given a breakdown and then how I'd have actively changed it. But we can still run through it and then come and revisit in a couple of months and just say, right, this is how it's now up and
Well, we could
running.
do like a little precursor then. Like you could maybe talk me through your ideas. What have you got there?
Yeah,
So,
okay, fair enough. So saving and budgeting. Obviously, everyone knows how to save. You put money in a bank account or a savings account, and it builds your interest with regards to whatever current poor interest rate the banks are
yeah.
offering. You can boost your interest rates by going into a cash ISA account that some banks provide. That might give you an extra percent, but you'll be in a fixed sort of 3-year term or 1-year term at a slightly better rate where you don't have as easy access to your money. Other forms of saving include, I guess, just stashing it up in a little safe underneath your bed and then just hiding it away for a rainy day.
Yeah.
I think now that some banks are offering sort of like active savers where you can open up like subfolders or where your income comes in for the month and then like if you're saving for a holiday and a house and then something else, it like distributes that income percentage wise into the 3 separate funds almost. Not funds, but
Your mini
um
accounts. Yeah, yeah,
project your projects and goals that you're going for. So that's another way. So like I think the whole concept of saving is changing because online banking offers you a bit more freedom to move your funds around without having to go into the branch and all that sort of
yeah.
fanning
Yes.
around with
So
pin
that
numbers
looks.
and
If you log on online, you can see. Let's say you were saving for a holiday, you're saving for a new phone, or you're saving for something else, and those three things
yeah,
there will appear as three separate accounts, but in reality, they're just little pots on the side of your full account. So yeah.
yeah,
The other things that some banks offer as well is if you're saving monthly, you can put away somewhere in the region of 200 to 250 pound a month. And if you do that for 12 months, they'll offer you somewhere in the region of 3 to 5% on that total sum, which isn't too bad.
That's
It's
all
like
right.
an alternative to an ISA because your money's still locked away. But yeah, it's like it ends every year, so you can have one of those going every year with however many people you bank with. It's another
Yeah.
option.
Okay, fair enough. I guess the other way of should we move on to
Yeah, sure.
budgeting
We're
then?
just doing a summary, so
Well, actually, there's another way of saving, isn't there? Because there's certain apps now where if you buy an item for say £4.68, it will round it up to 5 and take that 32 pence and put it into a savings
yeah.
account or something else. So it's just while you spend it, it'll round it up to make things easier. So if you really like to have nice round numbers in your accounts, then or nice round numbers when you spend, the rest goes into your account, then that's fine. You know, it's like a little bit of saving that you've not really even realised you've done if you're quite passive when it comes to actively putting away
Yeah, it's a
savings.
passive saving. I know some banks are offering the same thing now where you can opt into that.
Yeah.
So if you're going to buy, like you say, something that's not quite a whole number, it'll save those. It'll just round it up to the nearest round number and save those for you.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
Save those for
It
you.
soon adds up.
That's just because you've just been lazy at the start of the month, innit? Because you're not like putting money from your current account into your savings account. You're kind of just leaving it all in the current account.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it probably does still end up. Yeah. It's basically equivalent of just keeping all pennies and 10 pence coins in it in like a big till and
Digital
then going
version
to
of
the
it,
local
yeah.
coin bank and throwing
Well,
it
the thing
all
is,
up.
if you do that with that coin bank, they take like 3 or 5% cut, don't they? So it's probably easier
They
to.
do. I mean, a 3 or 5% cut of coins is probably worth costs more for them then to come and collect it all and then send it to bank because of weight and petrol and all the rest of
Well,
the things
yeah, I know,
they've got
but
to
like
take into
if
consideration.
if it's your savings, like you've saved the money, haven't you?
I mean, you could say that if you're talking about saving pennies and 10 pence coins, but I wouldn't even look at that. I just kind of like it's just all accumulating there until it gets full. It's not really saving it, is
No,
it?
but if you're saving it there, your jar gets full, and then you go take it to a counting jar or whatever that's going to issue you a check, and you've still
Mm.
got to go to the bank or like,
Yeah,
and they're taking
yeah.
their little cut for obviously counting it for you and doing whatever with the cash.
Shrapnel. I'm just not a fan of shrapnel. Full
Yeah,
stop.
rich kid.
Yeah. I'm not. It's not even a rich kid. I'll accept a quid, but they just need to get rid of this pen system,
Yeah,
man.
digital currency then, the future. Yeah,
Yeah, I'd probably say that. I mean, most people now pay with their phones, don't they? It's not even like cards
phones,
anymore.
watches.
Yep. Yeah, watches. I always think that one's a funny one. Oh yeah. Bang.
Yeah.
There we go. See you
So
later.
yeah, I guess it's like the
Right.
digital counting version or digital rounding version of shrapnel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And decimal points are getting cashed in.
definitely. Right, budgeting.
Budgeting. So I guess there's a few ways to do this. You can get budgeting apps, I'm sure, where they will break down your spending habits each month, say for leisure, how much money you spend on coffee, how much money you spend on groceries, how much money you spend on fuel, and I'm pretty sure that they can put them then into like pretty sort of pie charts that then show you the percentage of how much you spend in here, how much you spend in there. I've not really done too much research into budgeting apps, but I imagine probably you must be able to put some sort of restrictions on the app to say right, or maybe not a restriction, but a warning that'll say right, you've now got £100 limit that you wanted to hit for let's just say right for the month. You don't want to spend any more than 100, so they'll give you a warning when you're getting close to that, say 10%. So it says right, you're now on £90, you're approaching your limit. Maybe it's time for you to slow it down if you want to try and save more money because you highlighted this particular area as something that you need to cut down your spending on.
I would have thought
Right?
so. I don't know. I know mobile phones do that.
Thing.
They do that on your
Yeah.
contracts, don't they? So
Mm-hmm.
when
So I
when
would
you're
have thought
approaching the end of your,
there.
sorry, you came through very
Yeah.
quietly.
Oh,
Yeah.
my bad.
Um,
So
you go.
go on,
You
mate. I'm
go.
just jumping in. You're jumping. So I personally don't do that because, well, if it consumes your memory of your phone, I don't want to be wasting it on stuff like that. I'd rather just have a set up my own spreadsheet, keep my receipts, check my bank account every now and then, and I'd set up my own little table where I'll have, for example, little subheadings like rent for the month. I'll have my food bill, not food bill, but the amount I spend on food. I'll also have luxuries, for example, so that's like one-off purchases. For example, this last month, um, I'll also have going out, so meals out and stuff like that. That obviously adds up, depending on how many meals you have a week or how many meals you have a month. It's interesting to see. Like I say, I've only really sort of set all this budgeting tracking that I'd class in my spreadsheet maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So this month obviously looks really bad because I've got a massive luxury spend with regards to the laptop that I've just recently bought. And then I had to go down to London for my Japanese exam, so I had more train tickets and stuff like that sort of like racked it up. But it's interesting to see that I didn't think I ate out that much, but I seems to have racked up about £110 already this working month just from eating out, which to me seems quite high, and it's something I'd definitely like to curb down. And then what I've done is I've set up a spreadsheet so it also displays a graph in like the bar form. The total total height of the bar is how much you've spent each month, but it also breaks it down into the subsections. So you have a green bar there from if it's 600 and odd, you'll also have a little purple bar there if it's 300, and then you'll have a little smaller bar that builds it up on top. So I can actually see the figures and numbers. So basically, it's like an app, I guess, but I'm doing it in control as
You
opposed
built it
to
yourself type of thing. Yeah.
yeah, I built it myself. Yeah, I update it myself as
Fair enough.
well.
That's not too bad if you can spare the time for that, isn't it? It's a good idea to
Yeah,
do. I suppose it
and I think
relieves you from giving access to your accounts to someone else, because I
yes,
imagine that.
and I think as well with me when I'm actively managing it, I'm responsible for inputting the data and gathering the data and putting it in there. I'm more likely to pay attention to it. Whereas I think if you've just got an app, you're quite easily to, oh, I've just not even opened the app this month, so I don't even know how much I've spent or whatever. It's quite easy for it to just, because you've just downloaded it and you don't really have to update it manually every time you purchase something if you're really serious about budgeting. Whereas I have to do that, so I have to look at the figures going up each month as opposed to just cracking it open. I don't know, whenever you want to look at it 2 or 3 weeks into your monthly budget.
Yeah,
Does this make any sense? Or am I just
no,
rambling
you
here?
are rambling a little bit. Like, I've been waiting for you to stop speaking. Basically,
You gotta cut me off.
yeah. Well, I cut you off earlier, and you just carried on talking.
I can sound my own voice.
Yeah, I know.
You should hear me speak.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think some people like to do it with pen and paper because then obviously you've got the effort of actually writing it out yourself. But I suppose doing it in Excel or
Mm.
doing it on a digital version, still having to input the data yourself, you kind of holding yourself accountable to do that, and you can
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
pay attention to that data and yeah, really get something of value out of it. I would say the kind of only real benefit of an app doing that is, you know, you're not going to make a mistake because the app should have already
No.
been
Yeah, for
quality
sure.
checked. But other than that,
If
I
I've got an
think
absolute
yeah, I
binge
do it
for a week,
myself.
yeah.
I also keep a little record, mainly because I've had like credit cards and stuff in the past. So obviously,
Yeah.
it's when you're seeing you spent money on that, but obviously then is you're not paying it off straight away. So
Mm.
you've still got the money in your account. So if that's not balancing with your credit card, you can you can kind of work out what you can afford to pay off and what you can't each month.
Yeah, I can do a balancing act.
Yeah, and obviously because there's that kind of buffer in the middle where if you didn't make a payment, then you get charged interest. You got to
Yeah.
make a minimum
It's quite
payment and
it's quite a
stuff.
lot, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So it depends on your credit rating, to be honest, but most of the ones that I
Well,
apply
I don't
for,
even have a credit rating. I don't even have a credit card, so that's kind of
well, you still have a
maybe
credit
something I
rating,
should look into.
because you pay a mobile phone bill or whatever. Oh no, you pay as you go.
Yeah, I guess I paid off my car as well, like a couple of
Yeah,
years back as well. Then I have other monthly installments. So I guess that would have
you
built
say
it
you
up.
pay rent each month and stuff like that.
True.
You'll have some
True.
rating,
So
but
in
yeah,
terms of
it might not be
how
brilliant.
you fraction your budgeting, am I cutting up again, mate? Go on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
basically, yeah. So I keep a track of what debts I have because obviously It's good to know what you need to pay off. So things like a mortgage, credit cards, any personal loans or any finance. Keep a track of those on a list and my monthly payments towards those. If I ever have any
Mhm.
spare money, I pay a chunk off that. Um,
Yeah.
the other way is, yeah, I keep a track of roughly what I'm spending. I tried it accurately for like 2 or 3 months. I found it quite onerous, and I didn't find it benefited me too much. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm very conscious now of when I do spend, because it did become a very easy habit just to tap the card, and you're not aware. Yeah, there's some psychology basis around that as well. Basically, when you hand over cash, you lose, like you get this sense of you're losing cash, but obviously you're gaining the
Yeah.
item that you've bought. So you kind of got this exchange
Mhm.
going on. Whereas when you pay by
Right.
card, you hand your card over, or you tap your card, or you swipe it, and you get your card back, and you get the item. So like deep
Okay.
down in your brain somewhere, in the kind of primal exchange value thing, it feels, or apparently it's a lot easier to spend on your card than it is in cash.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. That's probably why people go mad shopping sprees online because it's just so easy to click and collect in
You
it,
don't lose
basically.
anything, or you don't physically see anything going anywhere. It's just a
No.
number on a screen. Yeah.
So, so I guess now that you've done your budgeting for your first month, let's just say you've got yourself a base case.
Yeah.
Now you can look at how much money you've got coming in for your income sources, and then I guess the next step is to really divide up what you want to, how you want to spread that income, I guess. Now, the first thing you want to be looking at is how much of a percent is your rent if you are renting. If you're not renting, then obviously you can discard this straight away. So I think a typical sort of renting percentage that most people not dictate, but dedicate their salary to is around 30% with regards to
Well, I'd say
renting.
that yeah,
If you're now in London, it's
traditionally,
probably going to be a lot higher.
traditionally that's what you'd expect to see is around 30%. But
Yeah.
I've seen some figures late last year from the BBC saying that that's much closer to 50% just because of the price of rent.
Mm. I guess for me, it's kind of it's a difficult one. That I obviously want to live somewhere that you're comfortable and feel nice in, but if you're not actually spending that much time in that place, and you're chucking away 60%, 50% of your salary in a place that you're literally just coming home and putting your head down for because your jobs either really demanding or you're just a very busy person, then I'd probably say you need to consider looking somewhere
Yeah.
else to just knock that down a bit more. I also guess it depends on what sort of stage you are in your life. If you're a young 20-year-old, it's quite easily just to live in a house share with 3 or 4 other people and save a bit more. While if you're 30 to 40 and you've got a little family, ideally you're going to be wanting your own place, aren't you? So house shares are going to be off the agenda, and to do a full house to yourself is naturally going to be more expensive than just renting a room out, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's the issue, isn't it? That a lot of people might not be 30
Mm.
and they could actually be 20, 25 with a young family and still have that young
Yeah.
career income. So
Mm.
obviously that, it's not always an option to move to a smaller place or rent share or anything
No.
like that. So
But it's something you should definitely at least take a look
yeah.
into if you can, if you have the freedom, the luxury to do so. I guess the next thing would be to do. I think a lot of people fall into the trap of saving whatever they have left in their account at the end of the month, as opposed to taking out a chunk there and then once they've just been paid and putting that straight into a savings account. So I guess if you do that straight away and move, I don't know, say 10%, 20% of your income straight into a savings account, you, yes, so say for example you're getting tight towards the end of the month, you could quite easily just transfer a bit of that money back into your account. There's no stopping you, but you actively have to do that. Whereas if you just left all your money in your current account and then said, right, I'll just save whatever I got left over and throw it in, you can almost just keep spending and not really be aware of how much you've spent because you've got more to spend because it's there in your current account, as opposed to having to actively transfer it from your savings into your current and then ask you questions of, do I really need to be doing this, or maybe I should have cut down a little bit on the spending.
Yeah, so that, again, this is kind of like a psychology kind of habit slash hack.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that manage to be quite frugal and kind of save a lot is because they do that at the start of the month. So they almost tax themselves, call it savings tax if you want to.
Yeah,
And
almost
yeah,
handicapping yourself, yeah, for the month, yeah.
but it's not because you often find that you can live off what you've got left. So like if you do take 10% out, you've paid for your house, that's a priority, and maybe your
Mm.
bills, because without that it's quite difficult. But yeah, essentially whatever's left, you put
Not
that
gonna
into a
get far,
savings
are you?
account. No, you're not. You put that into a savings account, and then whatever you got left there is what you spend that month. I think it's a really good habit to get into if you can do it.
Mm.
I've done it in the past. Not well. I still do it now. It's just different reasons.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
still do it as
automatically
well. But
transfer that out as early as I can after I've been paid, and then I don't touch it. I do my best to live off
yeah.
what's left.
So what sort of percentage-wise are we talking at that you'd like to ideally put in each month? I mean, I actively aim for around in excess of 30. I'm trying to put in between 30 and 50% of my income into it.
Yeah. So I think I'm doing 30.
Obviously, you're saving for a wedding, so it's a bit more different to
Well, I had an issue
what I'm
when
doing over
when I
here.
was living in Bristol. Obviously, I was contributing to both houses. So that was
Yeah.
difficult. I was saving barely anything, maybe 10 or 20% at a push if I
Mm.
could. And then since moving home,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm actively saving 30, well, probably about 40%. So,
Mhm.
well, no, it'd be
That's good. That's good.
35% every month.
Yeah.
So yeah, I pay my bills first. So I have a separate account that all my bills come out of,
Yep.
transfer that across, and then uh, that's
And then your chunk goes in straight
yeah.
into your
There
savings, your
again, my living
35%.
costs, if you break down what I pay out for my living costs, it's more than 30%. It's probably closer to about 45%. So
Right.
yeah, I send out 45%. However, we do like shop on that account from time to time.
Yeah.
So we get like the food
Okay.
shopping in off from that account as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm probably within those
I think another.
brackets that you explained earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. 30 to 50%. I think that's a good range to be if you're quite young. You're trying to save for the future. I think that's definitely a great sort of ballpark figure to be aiming for. I would say. I mean, it definitely works for me. I think the also thing you want to take into consideration is you don't want to live outside your income's means. So you don't want to be taking payday loans out because that's going to cripple the amount that you can actually save if you can save at all. And it's also you know that you can live off this current amount. So if you then get a higher paying job or you get a couple of raises at work, I know the temptation is now, oh well, I'm getting paid more, I can spend more. And if you want to do that, then fair enough, fine. But if you want to save, I mean, you've got the opportunity there to save even more while still living your current lifestyle. So I guess it's trying to get around to that mentality again of not spending it all just because it's there.
Yeah,
You know what
so
I mean?
if you did get a big raise and you were living close to the wire beforehand, you could probably split that raise in half. So if you wanted to live a little bit better, you could probably
Mm.
say, right, well, 50% of that raise I'm gonna keep, and 50% I'm gonna transfer into my savings on top of whatever else you're transferring out. So
Yeah.
you get the raise and you can upgrade your lifestyle if you feel you must. But yeah, I think what you're saying is
Mm.
you try and get into the mind frame that well, I'm perfectly happy with where I am. If I can take this raise and pocket all the additional extra,
Pocket
yeah,
even more. Yeah.
that certainly plays
And then I
towards
guess
what
the
we want to
final.
do in terms of investing.
Mm. I
Yeah.
was just going to get round to that. Yeah. So the final thing I would suggest is saving even the right choice for you, or the right way you want to just let your money sit in the bank? Do you think you could actively use that money to make more money for you elsewhere by putting it to work, i.e., in these sort of ISA accounts where you have stocks and share options where you can buy that to make income from dividends and capital gains? Or do you want to perhaps I think there's Have you heard of Circle? Is it GoFundMe? GoFundMe or Circle Share or something like that, where there's actually now platforms where you can lend money to small like start businesses, and then obviously they pay you an
Yep.
interest. So you can do that as well. I've not really looked too much into that, but it's definitely potentially another stream that I could do with some more research into just to see what sort of rates you can get.
So I think, yeah, the thing there
Naturally,
to really make clear is once you've kind of got a good amount of savings, so like you might want to put away enough to say cover you for 3 months. So once you've saved
yeah,
up, so let's say you lost your job or you lost your entire income, you've got enough for 3 months saved. Yeah,
you got a
yeah.
buffer. Yeah, you got a buffer capacity there just in case it does hit the fan and you like you say you're out for
And I
3 months.
think, yeah,
So you can at least
everything on top of that, then, there's no real benefit, or I don't see a benefit in saving that in a UK bank account right now. There's certainly way better
no.
options out there, even low risk options, that's still getting way better rates of return.
Yeah, bonds and gilts they still get a lot better interest rates than interest rates because obviously interest rates are getting crippled by inflation
Yeah.
as well.
So, I mean,
So I guess the first step is to definitely develop yourself into a saving habit, and then you want to start looking at right now that I've got some savings, what do I want to do with it? Am I just saving for a house? Okay, great. That's a good usual first sort of step that young people want to get onto that property ladder. But then there is also the option of investing into equities and other various markets.
yeah.
Right.
Well,
I can't think of anything else to talk about now. We've rambled a
yeah,
fair bit there.
to say that was only meant to be a brief cover of what saving and budgeting was meant to be. Never mind. I don't know how much sense that would make without any graphs, but hopefully it makes some
Yeah.
sense.
Well, we can throw it up on the blog, and then I can always come back with my graphs update and stick it up
Yeah,
there.
sure. Okay, so next up, you had
We have a
you
review.
put some graphs together. You did actually do it this week.
I actually managed to find.
Yeah.
Congratulations to me. I've been slack for the last 3 weeks. I know. Slap my cuffs on, but let's go. So this week, as I mentioned, we were going to be looking at a
Oh,
university
before you
degree.
fire away, you
Go on.
you were able to put all these graphs together, but you left it to me to slap a presentation together. So I apologize up
Yeah.
front for any
Did.
spelling mistakes because this has not been checked. No.
Checked and approved. We are engineers.
Uh,
Usually it goes through 3 or 4 people before our mediocre spelling mistakes work gets sent out to a client. But in this case, we're giving you it
so
raw
we
and uncensored.
apologize for this, terrible presentation, but
It's not terrible. The figures and graphs were all right. It's just we couldn't extract it out from the Excel online system that we use into a PowerPoint presentation. We had to basically print screen it and then crop
yeah.
it to get it on because we were just refusing to just take it out.
All right, I'll let you introduce it now.
See. Right. So I was going to be starting to toss between a review for a university course and then a book review the other week. Oh, look at that presentation. Ooh. So this week I was going to do the field that I studied at university, which was chemical engineering. So I studied at the University of Bath, and I went to university the year before the fees went from 3,250 and skyrocketed up to the current fee amount, which is 9,250. So if we just go forward now to the base case, and I'll show you what I'm going to be using for the university sort of baseline, which is going to be the same for every sort of course I do. So it's going to consist of a tuition fee loan of the maximum amount you can take out, which was £9,000.
This is based on a 3-year
And
bachelor's degree. Yeah.
this is based on a 3-year bachelor's degree with no sort of sandwich placement or 6-month summer placement or anything
Fair
like that.
enough.
So the most you can take out each year is a tuition fee loan of 9,000. You can also take out a maintenance loan as well. And I use the case where you was living outside of London and away from your parents, and the maximum you can take out there is 8,200. If you're living in London, I think it's slightly more. I can't remember the exact figure. And if you're living with your parents, it's less. I think that one's around 6,500. So what I've done basically here, if you can see this little table, so year one total debt that you will have acquired, because the interest rate is applied as soon as you basically receive your loan. So at the end of year one, you will have the 17,200 pounds worth of debt that you take out from the loan, and then you have the interest rate. And now the interest rate is currently calculated by the current RPI rate, which is the retail price
Yep,
index, if I'm wrong.
that sounds right.
Plus 3%.
Yep.
So for these base cases, I've just assumed that the RPI is around 3%, which is what it's been at for maybe a couple of years now. So as you can see there, end of year one, we have a total debt of £18,232 with about £1,000 accrued interest. Next year, you have the maximum amount of tuition fee loan and maintenance loan added onto that, and then your interest again. And then the final year, when you graduate, you'll have another slug of £17,200 added to your total debt, and then obviously the interest as well. So at the end of your 3 years, you will have accrued a debt of £58,043.40.
I didn't realise that the interest got charged straight away. That's news to me. Is
Yep.
that? That's
You are getting interest as you are studying.
wow.
Yeah, ripping it at you. So in the terms
so
of,
harsh.
it does sound harsh, but when you listen further on, it's not too bad really, because as I'm about to explain now, the rate that the student loan is repaid is based on a threshold of £25,725.
Okay.
So it's taken, the percentage taken before tax and all that sort of stuff. So your monthly threshold is, if you earn anything over £2,143, you will get taxed 9%
Okay.
on. So for example, if you earned £2,500 for the month, you would be taxed 9% on the difference between 2,500 and 2,143. So in that case, it would be £357. You'd be taxed 9% on that, which let's just say for simplicity's sake, it's 10%. Yeah, 27 quid a month.
Okay.
That's how you would repay it. So if you now flick it across to the chemical engineering aspect, so we have here the typical sort of starting salaries for a chemical engineering graduate, depending on the industry they go into. So at the top there, we've got oil refining, which is sort of usually the crown jewel if you're a chemical engineer that you want to get into after university. That's the highest paying one there at £40.3 thousand a year. Drink and food, so that's your food processing, your ice cream making, Unilever, that sort of companies. Typical sort of graduate can expect to bring in around £28,000 there. Power generation, so that'll be your nuclear sort of power plants, your coal-fired, your wind turbines, not your wind turbines, sorry, your hydraulic turbines. So that's just procuring power. Water industry is what me and you were in, so that was roughly our sort of star in there. You've got pharmaceuticals, which is 30,000, consultancy, which is around 27,000. It's worth pointing out as well that if you are doing a chemical engineering degree, you'll find that you'll be much more favoured if you do a master's with regards to getting into these fields. Like if you come out of a bachelor's, you might find it quite difficult to get into a field. I was quite lucky when I came out of university because I'd done an industrial placement year where I'd actually worked at both oil refining and water treatment. So I reckon if I'd not had that experience, I would have probably struggled to get into a engineering job, just because the norm now is that most students do a master's degree. So that's obviously going to then build your debt that we had back in the first slide. So you won't just have 3 years, you'll have 4 years. So that's probably going to be pushing you up to around the 75,000 mark, maybe a bit higher, maybe 80,000. Okay. So if you then do the average starting salary across all these sort of sectors, you're coming out at around £30,000. It's also worth pointing that most of the figures that I have used for this have come from the iChemie official website. So if you want to see the report that they've put together, using the figures and the stats that they've got, by all means, you want to go over there and check out the figures for yourself if you are interested in doing a chemical engineering degree at university. So what I've done now is they have a breakdown how much you can typically average age band earns each year. So this is not specifically industry related. This is just an average salary of all industries put together. And as you can see there is a fairly big difference between the male and the female graduates as they get towards the latter end of their career. But this is based on old previous data now. So you'd probably expect a female who's starting now to earn substantially closer to what a male does compared to this jump at the end where there's a solid £36,000 difference. So as you can see there, it gradually builds up. Assumed that at this point, by the time you get to 25 to 30, you will be a chartered engineer. So a chartered engineer is a sort of, I guess, the next step after you've graduated from university. It almost certifies the industry that you have experience and you know how the world of engineering works.
It's an independent assessment of your ability.
Independent government body that assesses that. So that also boosts your earnings. It's worth pointing out that on average, a chartered engineer earns roughly 20% more than an unchartered engineer. So if you want to look at these figures, if you're not chartered yet, then you roughly want to be taking off about 20% of what these figures are here. So just going through there, 30,000, and then your sort of ending sort of salary is maybe 90,000. You can probably get to 100,000 if you're quite lucky. I mean, if you're in the oil and gas industry, you can definitely sort of branch out to maybe 150,000, 200,000 quite easily. So if you want to move on next, just wait for the delay to kick in, and I can get it across. So this is just this exact same table that you've just seen there, but it's in a graphical format. You've got the age bands on the x-axis, and then you have the y-axis, which is your income in terms of thousands of pounds. So big difference there towards the male and female careers in a chemical engineer. I would have thought that's going to definitely close over the next few years. So what we've got now here is we've got the will I pay it back slide. So this is the yellow line there is your net debt, and that's going up at your 9%, not your 9%, but your 6% each year, depending on when you started your salary. I've assumed here that you come out of university at 21 with a bachelor's degree. I've not started the salary off at the average of £30,000 that we saw earlier on. I assume that's because you wouldn't have a master's degree, so they could pay you less, and you'd be going in an average sort of industry, not in the top end stuff. So as you can see there, your income at this point, your income's you're not even paying anything off in your loan repayments because you're there or thereabouts the 25,000 threshold. So if you're only paying off £17 a month, that times by 12 months is only £200.
The interest.
Now your rate of interest there is going up massively. Yeah. So you're not actually making any dents into it, and it's strange to see that throughout the whole lifetime you're not actually making any dents into the repayments at all, and that's probably because by the time your loan gets into the 80,000 mark, you're accruing nearly £5,000 worth of interest each month. And when you're starting to develop your salary, maybe when you get into your 40s and you're getting up towards 50,000 or 60,000 pounds a year, you're only really taking away 3,000 to 4,000 pounds worth of your debt. So you're not actually making any inroads because the interest is just so high. It's just skyrocketed at this point because you almost had that delay factor where you had your 3 years at university, and then you had 10 years where you wasn't particularly making any large chunks because your salary was not that high. So you're almost behind 13 years, and the interest is just absolutely. So you're not really getting anywhere with it. So by the time you're making your £80,000 by the end of it, you're paying off maybe £5,000 to £6,000 a year of your debt. But the good thing about the UK system is that after 30 years, the debt is just completely wiped. So whatever much you've got left is just completely discarded. And I think from a chemical engineering aspect, from what I calculated, from the start of your earning career, you will have paid off around £80,000, or you will have basically paid £80,000 worth of repayments, I guess. over the 30-year span.
So you've borrowed
But you would,
60, but you've paid back 80. So technically you've paid back what you borrowed, but because of the price of the
yeah,
interest, you never actually paid it back in full, but it got wiped.
yeah, it got wiped. So I guess the trade-off is not to worry about the figures that you're getting on your repayment sheet for your student loan, and just look at it as sort of more as a graduate tax of around 10% of anything over the 2,143 pounds threshold limit, because you're not going to pay it off. I mean, looking at it, I mean, a chemical engineering salary at 90,000 is quite a decent amount to be finishing with when you're maybe 50, 55 years old. Like, it's going to pay your mortgage if you've got kids. It's going to pay all that sort of stuff off as well. But to even make inroads into that debt, you're probably going to need to start in on a salary of around 50 or 60, maybe even 70,000 pounds, just to even have any chance of paying it off.
Yeah,
Because, like we say, when you've got to the 100,000 mark, you're gaining 6,000 pounds in interest each year.
it's quite a
So
lot.
it's just
Yeah,
so difficult to even catch it up. And by the time you got to that sort of level, like, your interest rate's going to be up at, well, your net debt's going to be up at around 180,000, 190,000, and at that point you're accruing nearly 12% every year. So yeah, I guess what I was trying to comprehend is it worth it? I would say yes, it probably is. From the perspective of you're never going to pay off the debt, so don't even worry about it. Yeah, you're going to pay off £80,000 over the course of 30 years, but for a fairly decent salary in terms of an engineering discipline, it's not too bad. And this last graph that Lewis has thrown up here is just in the graphical format of the average starting salary across the typical engineering industries that you could get into. So what I'll talk about next is I'm just going to spitball it now. So opportunities when you first get out of university. Certain sectors are a lot more reliable with regards to jobs. For example, the water industry is always fairly consistent. There's always supply and demand there. So it's a fairly, there's definitely chances and opportunities to get in there. For an industry such like oil and gas, it's much more cyclic. So you're going to have sort of a boom and bust. Boom and bust job demand. So when I graduated from university back in 2015, I'd just come out during a bust cycle. Oil had crashed from about $120 a barrel down to around 27, 30 at its lowest. So there was fierce competition before I even started applying for jobs, because obviously there was a saturation of oil and gas people being released into the market, and people didn't really want to take on too many graduates because they couldn't afford it, and then you had a lot of graduates applying for these positions. So the competition was really sort of tough, and then the salaries had dropped as well. Now I was recovered a little bit more, the demand's starting to pick up, so it's starting to improve salary-wise for that, and then they're taking on more graduates, and there's more opportunities there for when you first get out. In terms of going forward as well, I think there's always going to be a demand for chemical engineers. It's not an easy sector that could be. It could definitely be improved by AI, algorithms, and that sort of stuff, but there's always going to be that sort of principle with regards to any sort of engineering where a computer can't take into consideration factors that, for example, such as location of a wastewater treatment plant, and then how much odor it's producing, how the residents nearby can actually pick up that odor, and all these sort of dynamic models, and how you could provide solutions for that. Like, sure, the AI can predict the most optimum solution, but sometimes the optimum solution can't be achieved for permit regulations or other factors. And I think so there's always going to be an opportunity for chemical engineers, but it's just embracing that AI technology as well. So yeah, in short, I think it's a good engineering discipline to get into. You don't even have to go into engineering after you've done it. An engineering degree can quite easily open the doors for a move to a sector such as computer programming. It can also open the doors to financial sectors such as banking and, that sort of area. So it's definitely worth, I would say, doing at university. Not that I'm just trying to sell it to everyone just because I did it. but there are opportunities there, and then the starting salary is pretty close to the UK average salary anyway. And then if you're only going up from a trajectory from there, it's a nice platform to have as a young professional. With myself, like I say, I'm lucky that I can put away 50% or between 30 and 50% of my income each month because my income is decent. I'd say. I don't want to brag about it or sound like an idiot, but I have the opportunity there because I'm not. The starting salary is decent. It's a decent sort of opportunity to then save and then prepare for my future as well, and give me a base. It gives me a stable sort of base case. So yeah, you have that opportunity there with chemical engineering. I don't know if you want to chip in there and ask any questions or.
I mean, did you like when you finished your because obviously you'd already worked in oil refinery or water and from
Yes.
that industry.
Yes.
Like
hmm
when you graduated and you were applying for jobs, like sort of what were you greeted with? Because obviously you already had some
Well, the
contacts
oil and
there
gas.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I had initially been offered a job back at the oil refinery that I'd worked at during my industrial placement, but in my final year, unfortunately, the refinery went bust, and it had to close down and became just an oil terminal down in Milford Haven. So a lot of people lost their jobs, and the whole equipment plant was basically sent to Pakistan. I think they only sold it for a tenner, which is stupid,
Wow.
but that's here and there. I then started applying for other oil and gas jobs, and I found that they wouldn't even consider someone with a bachelor's. They wouldn't touch it. They like the application process specifically said we need a master's degree.
Wow.
So I was not going to get in there unless I had a contact directly that I could say, come on, give me an interview and then we'll see what it is. Because I always knew that if I got an interview, I would do pretty well. But I never had the opportunity with oil and gas because they would literally demand a master's degree. Now I found in the sector with water, there was a lot more. Yeah, a bachelor's degree was fine. Like they'd happily take you on with a bachelor's degree. But there again, as I mentioned, the starting salary is a lot lower and it's a lot less, not less competitive, but yeah, it's not as technically skilled. I think the real push for the master's degree by a lot of companies in the oil and gas industry because they want you to get chartered
Right.
as quick as possible, and it's seen as a quicker route to have a master's degree than have to do something that I've done where I have to do a technical report that demonstrates my master's level, which I've now completed and passed, and I've also completed my CNC report because I finished a year earlier compared to everyone else, so I've got a year's experience ahead of everyone else, even though I just didn't have a master's. So I don't know. It depends how you want to weigh it up. If you're quite active about your technical report and you prefer to work on the job and then start building that income and then learn on the job, and I think I learn better doing that, then I would say do a bachelor's. But then you're not going to be able to get into the oil and gas. So,
Yep.
you know, I do think if I become chartered, I will have the opportunity to be able to get back into oil and gas just because I have proved I have experience and I'm a chartered engineer. So it kind of outweighs the fact that I don't have
Yeah.
a master's degree. So it's just a different route.
I think that's the other thing as well is yeah, it's there's not one single route to where you want to be.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably a good
No.
point to kind of summarize and just end on or end that rant on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ran. There's plenty of opportunity.
Um, yeah. I mean, I don't know how easy that would be to follow. I can follow it pretty well, mainly because I know you quite well. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
If you got lost in any section there, do leave us a comment and we'll try and clear it up for you. Yeah.
I'll try and clarify. Yeah, I apologize. Sometimes I'm trying to think of the words in my head whilst also, and the brain's just no, nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope. I'm just getting confused here, and then obviously that comes across as you don't know what he's
Well,
talking
it's
about.
just you jump back and forth between points. It's difficult to keep track sometimes. Even I lose track, but
It's an
yeah.
abstract way of going through things,
Yeah.
okay?
But yeah, no, thank you for the presentation and thanks for putting the graphs together as well. Um, I certainly found it useful, like because obviously I've
Mm.
seen them before the presentation, so I was kind of doing my own figures off the back of that.
Yeah, for your
Yeah.
electric engineering one,
So
could probably do that at a later date if
yeah,
you
I could
wanted.
probably do that. I don't think it'll differ much.
I think it'll probably differ much with regards to the opportunity section at the end and like what sort of markets are open
Yeah.
to you. And I would have thought personally, it's probably easier to jump between sectors as an electrical engineer as opposed to a chemical engineer, where you start is can be difficult to jump into something else.
Yeah. So like I would say that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah,
I have
fair enough.
experience in that already, and it's
Yeah,
there's so much similarity between the different sectors. Other than the kind of fine nuances, there's kind of there's not much difference at all.
no.
So yeah, it's quite easy to transfer between each different sector. I suppose there's kind of specific technical standards that might vary, but from client
Hmm.
to client, within one industry, they can vary quite drastically as well. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for
it's all
sure,
part of
for
the job.
sure. Is
I
indeed.
guess just
Is
before we
indeed.
shut this down, we have been running a
Shut down. Decontaminate.
we have been running this ETX trading platform in the background.
Have we?
I guess it's probably worthwhile mentioning before we reach Thursday because um, I know you've placed a
Yeah,
trade,
that is supposed.
which you gave us
I
an
suppose the
update
trade is
last
not
week.
doing
Yeah.
well.
So
It's down.
so did you think you
I'm just.
placed the trade based on the
Mm,
15 to 50 day moving average?
no, I based it on the 5 to 15
Ah, okay.
moving day average.
So slightly different
Yeah,
from
which
what
is
we were
probably why it's
talking
coming
about
back
on
to
the
20.
actual podcast a week ago on Thursday.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It is, but I was getting impatient, and this is the prime principle of not being impatient and sitting on your hands until you see an
Yeah,
opportune moment.
so
And I didn't do it.
setting that
Jump.
example.
Yep, probably going to lose this
Right.
one. I don't know. I found it quite difficult to find time to be able to really get down and do this because I've been absolutely run ragged doing all sorts of stuff, which is no excuse because we said it were a challenge and I've just not paid enough attention to it. So
I don't
it's
think
my
it's
own
an
fault.
excuse.
I,
I
I
don't I
think
don't
the
think that's
soft.
fair. I think both of us probably we're interested in getting involved in it, but we don't have a full appreciation of how much time it would actually take to do. And I think it'd be very
Yes,
easy
I
for
think.
life to
Yeah.
get in the way in any aspect of this trading thing. It's not as passive as
Yeah.
um, you know, yeah,
An hour a week.
yeah. So like
Yeah.
it
And it's one of those things that we don't know
no,
the software, do we? I guess, and like it takes a while for us to get to the point that we want to
there's two
be at,
learning curves
as
to
opposed.
overcome, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's the learning curve on the software and
Yeah.
setting up plots, graphs, and kind of learning how the software works and different techniques. And then there's the actual trading platform. Sorry, then there's the actual trading style where you're trying to
Technique. Yeah.
understand, these. Well, a simple one that we tried to explain was the moving average, and we took an hour to explain that, and it hasn't worked. So we're going to have to do this quite a few times. The issue that we're having, I guess, is the spare time. It's going to take kind of at least 2 hours to kind of sit there, set up some graphs, and even analyze the data.
Mm.
Then you also got to cross,
Yeah.
or make time for seeing when that actually happens. Because just because you've set up your graphs doesn't mean there's an entry point. And the other
Yeah.
kind of thing on the back of that then is, um, you know, it's yeah,
How patient are you?
it's gonna be quite time consuming. We've got a lot to learn, and yeah, exercise a little bit of patience with it. Oh, the final thing there then is, is ETX kind of the best platform for us, since it expires every 2 weeks?
Probably not. So we're gonna have to find
Yeah,
something
so
new.
I think that's going to be a priority.
Especially if you think about it, like in the space of 2 weeks between us both, we'll have placed one trade, and that's gonna have
Yeah,
been a loss. So like, it's not looking
no.
good, is it
So I
really?
think the main thing for us now, kind of moving forward, well, I am going to check in again, like tomorrow, and see what I can see if I can place a trade or not.
Yeah.
Uh, because it's worth trying to learn how to do it, even though it's going to expire soon. I think there's still lessons to be learned,
Hmm.
but yeah, we're probably going to look for a different platform that gives us the ability to trade for months at a time or even longer. I think
Yeah.
so. I think that's going to be useful.
So I guess. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Right, I think that pretty much
Yeah,
wraps it up, right? I've rambled
definitely
enough this
rambled
week.
this week.
If we had like a little word count in the bottom corner for me and a word count for you in the top corner, I reckon I'd have dwarfed yours by at least 3 times.
If not more, I'd say you spoke 5 times more than I did tonight. Yeah.
5 times
Yeah.
as much as you did. Jesus. Shut up, Dion, or
Just get
get
to
to
the
the
point. I
point.
thought you were
What
an
are you
effective
doing?
communicator.
I thought I was effective.
Yeah.
When you put it on me like that, and I've not really, yeah. I'm normally in meetings at work. I just kind of sit there and don't really say anything for like 15 minutes, and then I'll put a couple of
Fair
points
enough.
across. But put me in front of a camera, obviously it's a different story. I just want to talk and talk and talk and talk.
Jump back and
and you're
forth
just
and
like
back and
falling
forth.
asleep at the other end. Back. I need to get like a
Oh,
little whiteboard here
and
that
the
I can
hand
just
movements
put up
as well. You
and
like
basically
this?
draw it all on there. Yeah, ooh, let's do some dancing.
Oh well,
Constantly moving. Fidgeting. I've already got a little bit of a big thumb.
it's a lesson in it. We'll do a bit more preparation for the next presentation, I think.
I mean, we say we'll do more We'll say we'll do more preparation. But how busy is your week? Are you even going to be here next week for a podcast?
I'm
Or?
hoping so. I haven't had any information yet, but if I am away, I still want to do the podcast. But yeah, if not, we'll have to drop a message somewhere and figure out a different day to do it. I don't think anyone tuned in this week anyway, so we're fine on that front. We could just record
Give
it
you
a
a little
different night.
tip.
We can record it a different night and post it elsewhere afterwards.
All right, Matt.
All right. Well,
Sounds good
thanks
to
for
me.
tuning in.
We hope you found something useful out of my notorious rambling this week. Next week, I'm going to put it into Lewis's responsibility to cut me up when I'm beginning to
Even
trail
when
off
I do cut you
course.
up, you just cut me back off.
Pick back up. You ain't got the balls to cut me up.